I am delighted to welcome to the Simon Conway Show Dr. Patrick Moore. He has been involved in the environmental movement for some 40 years. He was a co-founder of Greenpeace. He was, for 9 years, president of Greenpeace Canada, 7 years as director of Greenpeace International, and all kinds of stuff. He has an interesting book out. It is... It's called Fake Invisible Catastrophes and Threats of Doom. You're very welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm just fine. Thanks very much, Simon. Yeah, I was with Greenpeace for 15 years, from 1971 to 1986. But when they took a sharp left turn, I had to depart. And since then, I've tried to be a sensible environmentalist and trying hard to keep politics out of it and just talk science as best I can.
It's impossible, though, to keep politics out of it, right? Because, you know, here we are. We've got this still new administration. One of the first things they say they're going to do is they're going to rejoin the Paris Accords, which essentially gives the world's biggest polluter, China, a break. They don't have to do anything while we spend all this all this tax money, because apparently that's the real answer. We spend taxpayer dollars to beat what a lot of us think is a natural cyclical event that just keeps happening over and over again. We get warm, we get cold, we get warm, we get cold. And if you'd have been in Iowa this winter, you'd have thought we were in the cold cycle.
Yes, there's no doubt about the fact that climate never stops changing. And they're just taking advantage of that fact to scare everybody to death. I mean, it's time to stop the baby talk. This world has been in a climate for 4 billion years, 3 billion of which has had life on the planet, and it's still here. So we're doing okay. The thing is, people don't realize this is a cold period compared to most of the history of life on Earth. And also, carbon dioxide has shrunk to very low levels in the global atmosphere in the recent millions of years. So it's a good idea for us to put some back in the sky and in the water, because plants need it. It is the stuff of life. And for people to make out that carbon dioxide is some kind of dangerous poison is so backwards and ridiculous, they just got to get a little bit more science and a little less scare politics. And that's why I wrote this book, which thankfully has become #1 in environment and ecology and environmental science on Amazon.com. That's pretty well the brass ring, the gold standard for a book is to be a #1 bestseller on Amazon.com. And my book reached there on Saturday and is still there today, and I think it's going to have a good run.
Well, we wish you luck with it. Of course, Greenpeace hate you. We may get to that. We may get to that in a minute. But it is interesting, isn't it? Because as the population of the planet keeps growing, the one thing that we can all agree on, hopefully, but you never know in the times you and I live in now, we can all agree we need more food. And Iowa, of course, is the one of the breadbaskets of the world. We supply food all over the world, and we need more food. And to try and stop us from producing CO2 while we need that is insanity.
Yes, it is, absolutely, because we know that approximately 70% of the yield from agriculture and forestry the increase in it is due to our carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere. There are advances in seed technology and genetics and soils and all those things, but it is really the extra CO2 that's being put in the atmosphere. Like NASA just came out last week saying that the Sahara Desert has gained 700 million kilometers squared of new green space because of the CO2. An area nearly as big as France and Germany put together. So we have a tremendous thing going on in our world right now with revegetation of areas that were barren, because plants become more efficient with water when they have more CO2. Not only do they need CO2 as the basis for their very existence, but it makes them more efficient with water so that it doesn't have to rain anymore in order to produce more food. So it's all around an extremely positive thing, and people forget that human beings are a tropical species. We came from equatorial Africa. That's where we evolved. And if it weren't for fire, shelter, and clothing,
yes,
we could never have come out of Africa. into the colder parts of the world, which are still just as cold as they were when we came out of Africa.
Yeah, you should have tried Iowa in January.
Yes, well,
went on for weeks,
Iowa,
man.
where the daffodils are out, but
Yes.
it's just barely a nice spring day here, a beautiful thing to see.
Yes, we don't have any daffodils here yet. At least I haven't seen any. But we had a huge snowpack, and it went on for ages. And we had like minus 20. The feels like minus 30 to 40. I mean, this is Iowa. And by the way, I spent 12 years in Florida before I moved here, so I have equatorial blood. Quite convinced of it.
Everybody should just forget about these scare stories about climate change, and not only that, about polar bears and coral reefs and radiation from nuclear plants. Not one single person has been harmed by a nuclear power plant's radiation in the United States, and there's 96 of them operating reliably and cost-effectively every day, and they should throw those windmills and solar panels in the ocean. Well, no, that'd be pollution. I don't know what I have a saying, they should rust in place because they aren't worth the metal they're made out of. Do you realize those machines do not produce enough energy even to reproduce themselves?
Yes.
Never mind to make extra energy for our society. It's fossil fuels that are building those wind turbines and solar panels, with all the mining and all the manufacturing and construction that has to be done is being done with machines run on fossil fuels. So I have said we should ban those unless they can produce enough energy to build themselves and then some more. That would mean that they were worthwhile, but they're not. They're actually a parasite on the larger economy.
So once upon a time, the CEO of Mid-American Energy was a guy called Bill Furman. He's now the CEO of the larger company that owns Mid-American Energy, which is Berkshire Hathaway, right? And they announced the biggest investment in Iowa history. I thought our governor was going to hold a parade. And the very next day, it was like 3.6 billion, I think it was, or 3.3 billion. Anyway, the next day, that CEO, Bill Furman, was in my studio. And if you want to know why it's happening, right? Everybody tells you, follow the money. This is me and Bill Furman. Where'd you get $3.6 billion from?
Well,
how much of it's our money?
Well, by ours, if you're referring to the U.S. taxpayer, pretty much all of it.
Right. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all for doing it. You know, they're a for-profit company. But that's why there's windmills all over Iowa.
That's precisely why. And it's just, Simon, it's just a tragedy that this money is being wasted. Yes, we're very wealthy and very lucky these days, but the amount of money that's being squandered on this virtue signaling and phony technology is just so unbelievable. What we should be doing if we want to reduce the use of fossil fuels, which would be a good thing, not because they're poisonous or going to kill the world. It'd be a good thing because they are very valuable, and there's not an infinite supply of them. So we should stretch them out for the future when we need them for vehicles and things and airplanes, where there is no way to plug an airplane into an electric socket. So we should be building more nuclear plants around the world.
Nuclear is clean
China
energy.
And Russia and India are doing exactly that.
Nuclear is clean energy, right?
Yes, it is, absolutely. And the people think the used fuel is waste. More than 90% of the energy is still in the used fuel. That's why it's being stored carefully and safely for when we want to recycle it. The Russians are already doing that. Look up BN 800 Russian nuclear plant on the Caspian Sea, or BN 600, the one they built before that. Now they're building BN 1200, a 1200 megawatt fast neutron reactor that can recycle the first cycle of fuel after it's been used. The study, I'm thinking I'm going to write Nuclear Energy for Dummies, because it is a complicated subject.
Yes.
But if people actually understood nuclear energy, they would vote for it.
We have a text line here. Just received a text message from one of my listeners. As an agronomist in Iowa, this guy, if that would be you, is spot on. Plants need CO2, and the more we have, the more Iowa farmers can feed the world. So there you go. Greenpeace hate you, and one of the reasons they hate you is because you keep saying things like nuclear energy is clean energy.
Well, you see, the trouble was in the early years of the environmental movement, when nuclear war was the biggest threat, and that's where we got started, against the U.S. hydrogen bomb testing in Alaska, and we stopped that, along with thousands of other people, but we were the spearhead out of Vancouver, Canada in 1971, sailing a little fish boat across the ocean, and it got on Walter Cronkite, and people thought, wow, there's people out there willing to risk their lives for this. That was the beginning of Greenpeace. The problem is we lumped nuclear energy in with nuclear weapons as if both were bad. Now, the thing we should have done was notice that nuclear energy should be lumped in with nuclear medicine as a beneficial use of nuclear technology. And that's what it is today. Those nuclear plants are not meant to harm people. They are meant to give people reasonable price electricity and very reliably every single day. They have the best amount of on-time delivery of electricity of any technology. They're operating more than 90% of the time. They only have to be shut down for refueling, and that is usually a planned event where you can plan to have other electricity available during the refueling periods. It's really the way to go. Right now, China is building 24 nuclear plants and planning even more for the future. By 2035, China will have more nuclear plants than the United States.
They're also building. They're also building coal.
Nothing, and neither is any other country in the West.
They're building coal as well. They're doing that at the same time. Our guest is Dr. Patrick Moore. He's been a leader in the environmental movement for more than 40 years. He was a co-founder of Greenpeace. He also served for 9 years as president of Greenpeace Canada and 7 years as a director of Greenpeace International. He has a book out. It's called Fake Invisible Catastrophes and Threats of Doom, and there's a very nice little cartoon on the front which essentially says, we're not all going to fry. What it actually says is, you will perish in flames, but I think it's tongue-in-cheek. Dr. Moore.
It's from Ghostbusters,
yes.
actually.
Yes, there you go. Dr. Moore, Dr. Patrick Moore, thank you very much. I enjoyed our conversation, and you can get this book wherever good books are found, and apparently Amazon is a good place. Dr. Moore, thanks a lot. Appreciate you. We'll maybe have you back, okay?
Thanks a lot, Simon. Anytime.
Thanks a lot. Enjoyed it.